Part 1. After Rebirth, Boss, she is beautiful and sassy. Author, Beautiful. Chapter 1. Chapter 1 Return to 16. Now a breaking news. At 1922 on March 26, 1507, in the cosmic calendar, Mr. Yunsu, honorary vice president of the Imperial Academy of Sciences and the Academy of Engineering, was found to have committed suicide at home at the age of 52. At that time, her research has just been a complete success, but the cause of the suicide is still under investigation. It is reported that His Majesty the Empire and the Federal Commander-in-Chief have rushed to the hospital. From now on, the Empire will suspend all entertainment activities and the country will mourn for 3 days. The memorial service will be held 2 days later. In the vast universe, whether it is city streets, players, billboards, or star networks, this voice can be heard even on remote wasteland planets. It is choked with pain, and billions of stars seem to have pressed the pause button. The man stood there stunned, unable to believe what his ears heard. How come? How could Academician Yoon commit suicide? She is only 52 years old. Considering that the average lifespan in the interstellar era is over 150 years, she is still only a young person. What's more, she is so important to the Empire and has made numerous outstanding contributions. Because of her, the Empire's technology has at least moved forward. In 100 years, because of her, the light of the Empire who crawled out of the slums inspired countless people, and she even played an important role in the peaceful scene of the Empire today. How could such an amazingly talented person commit suicide? Countless people cried bitterly, as if they were falling into the abyss. The spokesperson seemed to have seen the expressions of the people. He paused and continued, "The light of the Empire has fallen, but, I wish you to live forever." 3 days later, the Galaxy Prize, the highest award for scientists, made an exception for the first time and awarded the Yunsu Lifetime Achievement Award posthumously. However, no one would step up to the podium with firm and confident steps to lift the trophy that represents the supreme honor. In the main city at the center of the universe, a huge heroic soul monument towers into the clouds. Yunsu's name will remain here forever, and the starlight shines brightly on all those who pass by. Yunsu's consciousness drifted in and out. She didn't know where she was, but she knew clearly that she was dead and no one knew. This was the second time she faced death. Everyone knew that she came out of the slums. But no one knew that the person who landed in the slums was a soul from another world, riddled with holes, and dared to risk everything because he had nothing. How could she go back to her previous life? Facing a mirror at the head of the bed, Yunsu looked at her face in a daze. She was young and a little immature. This was clearly her face when she was a teenager in her previous life. Yunsu's memory was frighteningly good, and she quickly recalled what was going on now. At this time, it should be before her biological parents came to pick her up. She ran back from school because she heard about her life experience. She got caught in a heavy rain and fell ill with a severe cold. She was picked up within a few days, and from then on, the nightmare begins. Unlike the first time she died and woke up directly in the slum, this time she felt that her soul had been floating. She saw countless people crying for her and mourning for her. She saw that the original slum had become a prosperous city. Everyone in the city is proud of her. The moment her consciousness disappeared, she looked at the stars in the sky and smiled for the first time in a long time. The reason for her suicide was simple. She just felt that, after experiencing 2 lives, she was a little tired, had no worries, and was alone. Death was not terrible to her, and perhaps it was a kind of relief. "Sister, get up and drink the medicine quickly. Dad went to town to catch it for you. You should get well soon after drinking it," a slightly childish voice sounded. How can it be? Yunsu's pupils were dilated and her mind was shaken. She quickly looked around at the dilapidated brick and tile houses. She looked completely destitute. The originally small room seemed empty because there was no furniture. That's right, this was the home where she grew up in her previous life. The two people in front of her are her adoptive father and younger brother. She was originally a child of the Yun family, a wealthy family in Lanchinge. At that time, when Mrs. Yun's wife, her biological mother, was about to give birth, she was too depressed to stay at home and insisted on going on a trip. As a result, she accidentally had fetal gas, and was forced to stay in the county due to time constraints. She went to the hospital where she gave birth, and her adoptive mother happened to be in the same hospital. Both families happened to have the same surname, Yun. By some mistake, she gave birth to the wrong child. This mistake lasted for 16 years. Xiaoting, don't bother your sister, let her rest for a while after being rained so heavily, leave the medicine there until she wakes up before drinking it, a calm middle-aged man's voice dissuaded him. Yunsu was confused and had a splitting headache. Before she could think about it, she heard these two voices, which were like thunder. She suddenly opened her eyes and met two concerned faces. Some time ago, Yun Yan, the eldest daughter of the Yun family, had a minor car accident. Yun Tu and Su Ziyuling, the parents of the Yun family, rushed to the hospital. After recovering, they discovered that something was wrong in the doctor's report. Both Yun Tu and Su Ziyuling had type A blood. How could it be possible? Give birth to a child with type B blood. Yun Tu did some secret investigation and discovered that when he gave birth at the county hospital, he had the wrong child with another family named Yun, and his biological daughter had stayed in the country for 16 years. It was impossible for the blood of the Yun family to be lost outside, but they could not bear to send their daughter, who had been raised by them for more than 10 years, back to the countryside to suffer. After much consideration, they decided to raise the two children together. It was not like the Yun family could not afford to raise her. It's just an extra amount of money to compensate them. Yuntu took Yunyan to discuss the matter with Yunsu's father, Yun Daejin. The honest man who had been farming crops all his life first reacted with disbelief when he heard this, but looking at the pile of evidence in front of him, he had nothing to say. He didn't want to agree to the idea of raising the two daughters of the Yun family together, but in the end he was defeated by Yun Yan's tear attack. Looking at his biological daughter, who he had never seen before, he really couldn't say anything to let her come back and suffer. In the end, he agreed to let the Yun family take over his daughter Yun Su, who he had raised by himself, but he insisted not to ask for a penny from the Yun family. Yun Su, who was 16 years old at the time, heard about her life experience and did not want to believe it. Although her family was not rich, her father Yun had been very good to her since she was a child. However, she was young and weak-spoken, and was taken back by the Yun family after she was unable to resist. Yun Su, who grew up in the countryside, returned to the Yun family for the first time. She was incompatible with the whole family, especially Yun Yan, who was raised by the rich Yun family. Furthermore, her grades were among the best in the countryside, but she was only in the middle of the pack when she came to Lanchinge. As time went on, she became more and more inferior and silent, and her biological parents became more and more disdainful of her, favoring their spoiled daughter Yunyan. In this way, Yunyan refused to let her go for her position as the eldest daughter of the Yun family. She ostracized her at school and quietly competed for favor at home. In the end, she framed her, and Yunsu was charged with murder and was sentenced to 15 years. And went to jail. In prison, because of Yun Yan's secret management, Yunsu was like a lamb in a wolf's den. She was beaten and bullied everywhere. However, the clay figure still had a spirit and was ruthless when she had nothing. When she was forced to a dead end, she could only resist. Her attitude of risking her life shocked many people, so she stayed in the prison like a zombie for 10 years, and finally died due to the conspiracy of several district bosses. At the end of his life, the revolving door of life passed by and settled on the dilapidated brick house of the Yun family in Xiaoshui village. Yunsu felt regret like never before. If there was an afterlife, she would definitely not care about the illusory blood relationship and would definitely take good care of her adoptive father and younger brother. When she woke up again, it was Yoon-soo who died of disease in the slums of the interstellar era. With the ruthlessness and means learned from 10 years in prison, she climbed out of the slums step by step, frantically learning all available knowledge, and eventually became a scientist praised by everyone, known as the light of the empire, but no one knew that my heart has been empty for decades, unable to find the meaning of my life. I finally chose to commit suicide after completing the research and let go of the past. Time goes back and forth, fate plays tricks on people, and it goes around and around. Who would have thought that after countless sun and moon and insurmountable time and space, she has returned to the original place. Yoon-soo came back to his senses after recalling decades of memories in just a short moment. Looking at the still young and strong adoptive father and immature younger brother, I couldn't help but shed tears. When Yoon Daejin heard about her imprisonment, he was so sad that he suddenly fell ill. In addition, due to years of overwork, he became ill in just 2 years. Then he passed away and passed away. Since God asked her to return to this time again, she will definitely protect her father, younger brother, and the Yoon family, and she will definitely repay double what should be repaid. Seeing his daughter crying and her face as pale as paper, Yoon Daejin panicked, thinking that she still couldn't accept his life experience. He wiped his rough fingers on her face and said, "Susu, it's okay. I'll wait until you get sick well, you go back with your parents. Only when you go back can you have a good life. You don't have to suffer with your father. You can come back anytime you want. You will always be your father's daughter." Yoon-soo choked up and nodded. "Here, drink the medicine first, your health is the most important thing." Yoon Daejin handed the medicine to her. Yoon-soo stretched out her hand and took it. She drank the bitter Chinese medicine in one gulp without frowning. She had tasted so much suffering in the world, but this was nothing. "Dad, I know you are doing it for my own good. I will go back with them, but you must also promise me that you and Xiaoting will be on good terms. I will come back to see you often." Okay, Dad promises you the daughter is like this. No matter what she says, Yoon Daejin will agree, not to mention that the daughter is doing it for her own good. After telling Yoon-soo to have a good rest, Yoon Daejin pulled Yoon-ting out of the room. Yoon-soo was lying on the bed, replaying the events of his past life in his mind. The most important thing now was to take good care of his body. As for the Yoon family, the future was long. End of this chapter. After Rebirth, Boss, she is beautiful and sassy. Author, beautiful. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 First Meeting. Lanchinge, early morning. Yoon family, in the living room on the first floor, the Yoon family was discussing Yoon-soo's return home. Yoon Yan lowered her head slightly and looked gloomy. When Suzyuling saw this, she felt heartbroken. After all, she was the daughter she had raised for so many years. "Xiao Yan, don't feel sorry for me. When Yoon-soo comes back, she will be your sister. You are still our daughter and the eldest lady of the Yoon family." Suzyuling held her hand. "I know, Mom, I'm fine. This family belongs to Yoon-soo. I'm very lucky to have been raised by you and my father for so many years. I won't argue with my sister. Don't worry." Yoonyan's eyes were filled with tears. His face looked even more pitiful. Her behavior made Yoon-too and Suzyuling feel at ease and considerate. "Husband, you go to the company first." Xiao Yan and Xiaojing also went to school quickly. "I'm going to bring Susu back. Although that Yoon Daejin keeps saying he doesn't want money, who knows if he wants to plot against our family in the future. It's better to get rid of it early." Suzyuling's eyebrows were filled with disgust. Yoon-too nodded, gave some instructions, put on his coat and left first. Yoon Yan, who was hanging her head, heard a trace of disgust in her eyes when she heard Yoon Daejin's name. Her biological father turned out to be a country bumpkin who made a living by farming. She could not accept it and would not let anyone ruin her life. Yunsu, why should a girl who grew up in the country fight with her? She clenched her hands tightly without anyone noticing. Mom, can I go with you to pick up my sister today? After all, she may be unfamiliar with you after so many years. She and I may have more to talk to at the same age. Yunyan asked to go together. Suzayuling thought for a while and agreed. She called the school to ask for leave and set off with Yunyan and the housekeeper. Later, Yunjing recalled his thoughts at this time and wanted to slap himself twice. Suzayuling felt a little bad now. She knew it was in the countryside, but she didn't expect it to be so remote. Although the car had good performance, it couldn't stand up to the bumps on the dirt road. Yunyan had been here once and was mentally prepared. Suzayuling had a bad first impression of this place. Good. From beginning to end, Yunjing didn't say a word. He had been stable since he was a child and was better than his peers. Although the sister he grew up with was not his biological sister, and his biological sister had suffered in the countryside for more than 10 years, which made him feel a little pity for him, but after all, they grew up together. Yunyan has a better relationship with him. Since his mother and sister have already gone to pick her up, he won't get involved. No, we'll leave soon. Suzayuling quickly stopped him. The car stopped a short distance away from Yun's house, so the three of them had to get out of the car and walk towards Yun's house. Suzayuling couldn't help but complain a little, knowing that the road was not easy to walk. The family still didn't come. The next moment, it turned out that he was just a country boy, and he thought about how his biological daughter Yunsu had been taught by people like Yun Daejin, and he couldn't help but have a sad look on his face. Come, sit down, I'll get you some water. Looking at Suzayuling's appraising eyes, Yun Daejin felt a little embarrassed. But Susu is still sick, why don't you take a rest first? Suzayuling entered Yun's house and saw the scene of the Bear family. Her heart tightened. The Yun family was worse than she imagined. She didn't know what kind of life Yunsu had lived for so many years. At the same time, she felt secretly glad that Xiaoyan was not here. Perhaps it was a good thing that she grew up in this family, as it was her fate with the Yun family. Although she knew that she could not feel sorry for her own daughter by thinking this way, Suzayuling just couldn't control it. A big event happened recently in Xiaoshui town. The youngest daughter of the Yun family at the end of the village turned out to be the wrong child. Her biological parents are from a well-known and wealthy family in Lanchinge. They will take her back to enjoy their happiness in the next 2 days. After so many years of suffering, she was still. It's really pitiful that someone else has taken the position. I heard that the biological daughter of Yun Daejin's family still doesn't want to come back. It's really shameless. A few ladies were chatting next to the old locust tree at the entrance of the village, when they saw a polished luxury car that was incompatible with the car driving towards them. What? Sick. Yun Daejin, how do you take care of my daughter? We raised your daughter well, but this is how you treat my daughter. Xiaoyuling became angry when she heard this. Yun Daejin was stunned. So fast? Yun Daejin has been standing at the door of his house looking at her for a long time. He was originally going to pick her up, but Yunding went to school and Yunsu's illness was not fully recovered. He was really worried, so he waited at the door. Seeing Suzayuling and the others from a distance, they hurriedly greeted them. I was worried, but when I saw Yun Yan, I felt a little better. At least I still had a good daughter. When Yun Daejin heard this, he waved his hands in a hurry. Susu heard about her life experience and ran back from school and got caught in the rain. Okay, no need to explain, we will leave right away. There is a doctor at home and we will take care of him. Suzayuling interrupted him. Yun Daejin's eyes darkened, and Nyanyo responded. Dad, who is here? What are you talking about? At some point, Yunsu stood at the door of the room and looked at them. His face was pale, with a crescent moon, and it looked like a hibiscus without any powder. Yun Yan looked back, with a trace of jealousy flashing in her eyes. She didn't expect that Yoon-soo, who grew up in the countryside, had a good appearance, especially she was 45% similar to Soo-yuling. At first glance, she was her biological mother and daughter. Soo-soo, I'm mom, look how much we look alike. Before Yoon Daejin could introduce her, Soo-yuling stepped forward and took Yoon-soo's hand. Yoon-soo smiled, calmly retracted his hand and looked at Yoon Daejin. Yes, this is your mother, and your sister Seo-yan. They will be your family from now on. They are here to take you back, Yoon Daejin said quickly. Soo-yuling was a little dissatisfied when she saw Yoon-soo asking for Yoon Daejin's opinion, but thinking that it was their first meeting, she didn't show it at all. Okay, then I'll go pack my things, please wait for me. Yoon-soo turned around and entered the house. Contrary to everyone's expectations, Yoon-soo didn't show any surprise and accepted it calmly. Yoon-yan curled her lip secretly, thinking that there was nothing that could be done at home, and it wasn't like everything was bought new when she went back. After a while, Yoon-soo came out carrying a small box. The Yoon family was already poor, and there really was nothing to pack. They only had 2 changes of clothes, and most of them were her textbooks. Dad, I'm leaving first, take good care of yourself, I will come back to see you often. Okay. When you get there, you have to get along well with your family and study hard. Dad will take Xiaoting to see you when he has time. And Xiao-yan, you are fine too. Dad will also come to see you. Yoon Daejin, I didn't expect that my 2 daughters would leave so soon, so I turned away with tears in my eyes. Soo-yuling motioned to the housekeeper with her eyes. The housekeeper understood it and handed over a card. Mr. Yoon, this is a little thought from our husbands. It is a way to repay your kindness in raising Miss Yoon-soo over the years. Yoon Daejin took a step back and said, Soo-soo is my daughter, I should raise her as I should. I said I won't ask for your money. I just hope you can treat Soo-soo and Xiao-yan better. You don't need to worry about this. They are all my daughters. The Yoon family will give them the best education and life. Since you don't accept the money, please don't bother me in the future. After all, we are Yoon-soo's real family. As for Xiao-yan, I have no objection if she wants to come see you, Soo-yuling said to Yoon Daejin coldly. Since her biological daughter is back, there is no need to tangle with these people anymore. As for Xiao-yan, she knows the daughter she raised by herself. Xiao-yan knows who is good to her, so she can naturally tell the difference between closeness and distance. That's good, Yoon Daejin could only smile. Yoon-soo seemed to have ignored Soo-yuling's words and stepped forward to hug Yoon Daejin. Dad, take care of yourself and take good care of Xiaoting. I will be back. Soo-yuling felt dissatisfied when she heard that Yoon-soo had refuted her face to face, but she didn't say anything else. She just felt that Yoon-soo had grown up in the countryside and lacked education, so she had to be well disciplined when she returned home. A few people got into the car. Yoon-soo waved his hand to Yoon Daejin, and the car drove away, leaving only Yoon Daejin's reluctant eyes. Yoon-soo did not look back, because she knew that this was only a short separation. After the Yoon family's affairs were resolved, their family could live together again. Along the way, Yoon-yan wanted to talk to Yoon-soo several times, but she still swallowed it when she saw that Yoon-soo had her eyes closed and her face was pale. It was almost evening and finally arrived at Yoon's house. The Yoon's villa was located in the famous wealthy area of Lanchinge. The surrounding neighbors were all rich or noble. Yoon-yan glanced at Yoon-soo. It was the first time for this country bumpkin to see such a nice house. How could you not lose your composure? Yoon-soo stood at the door of Yoon's house, looking at the magnificent building, without any expression of awe or timidity, but with the corner of his mouth raised. Yoon's house, I'm back again. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After Rebirth, boss, she is beautiful and sassy. Author, beautiful. Chapter 3. Chapter 3 Return to the Yoon family. This bumpkin is really good at pretending. Yoon Yan secretly gritted her teeth. Come in quickly, what are you doing at the door? Su Ziyuling greeted them. Yoon-su stepped in, and Yoon Yan quickly followed. Susu, you just came back and the room hasn't been decorated yet. Although Xiao Yan's room is supposed to be yours, she's used to it after living there for so many years. Can you just make the mistake of living in the guest room on the second floor first? I bought some clothes for you in the closet. I don't want my mother to buy them for you again. You can change them after the room is decorated. Su Ziyuling felt that there was no problem with the arrangement. It was a world of difference from the countryside to here. Just because the adopted daughter is used to living in the room that should be her biological daughter's, what kind of logic is it to let the biological daughter who has just returned live in the guest room? The same was true in the last life. When they first returned, Yoon-tu and Su Ziyuling felt a little guilty towards her and were not bad to her. Later, they listened to Yoon Yan and even ignored her when she was unjustly accused and imprisoned. They only felt that Yoon-su disgraced them all and quickly broke off the relationship. It doesn't matter, I can live anywhere, Yoon-su responded. Su Ziyuling felt a little distressed when she said this. After all, she was her biological daughter, so she decided to compensate her more elsewhere. Your father and brother will be back soon, and our family will have a good meal. Okay, Mom, I'll go upstairs and clean up first. Yoon-su went upstairs to the same room as in her previous life. She didn't care about this. She had experienced darkness and had power in these two lives. She didn't bother to compete with Yoon Yan on these trivial matters. A good hunter would often kill with one blow. Lanchinge No. 1 Middle School is a national key middle school. Even if Yoon-tu opens his mouth, Yoon-su will most likely be assigned to the worst class with his grades. Yoon Yan gave Yoon-su a sarcastic look. Yoon-su went back to her room after dinner. The Yoon family thought she was introverted and talked little, so they didn't say anything. Dad, isn't this bad? After all, Xiao Yan still has a biological father. Besides, Xiao Yan and Yoon-su don't look like twins. Unexpectedly, Yoon Jing spoke. Yoon Jing opened his mouth and wanted to say something else, but when he met Yoon Yan's pleading eyes, he remained silent. After receiving the sight of Yoon Yan, Yoon-su slowly showed a smile. His eyes were deep, and he was unknown. So Yoon Yan shook his heart. How could the soil buns have this look? It must be the illusion. That's all, just take more care of Yoon-su from now on. After all, she is my own sister. She was still feeling a little uncomfortable after all, so Yoon-su went to bed early. Yoon-su opened the textbook she brought. After so many years, even though her memory was amazing, she could not remember much of the contents of the book. Yoon Jing frowned when he heard that Yoon-su was staying in the guest room, but didn't say anything. Yoon-tu's face darkened. What's wrong? There are a lot of fraternal twins who don't look alike in this world. Besides, Xiao Yan is my daughter, so it's okay if her father doesn't touch her. He just felt that his parents were a little too partial to Xiao Yan. Yoon-su's identity had been taken over for more than 10 years. He could just go home and stay in a guest room, and he couldn't even get his identity back. Even though Xiao Yan grew up with him and had a deep relationship with him, it still didn't make sense. Yoon-su didn't speak as if watching a farce. He only nodded when he heard about school. Yoon Yan felt she had won a round, and was secretly happy in her heart. So what if she was her own child? The most important thing in her parents' hearts was her. Half an hour later, Yoon-tu and Yoon Jing went home one after another. At the dining table, Yoon-tu looked at his daughter who had just returned home and said, "Now that you are home, if you need anything, just tell your mother. I have transferred your student status to No. 1 Middle School and will report there tomorrow. As for your identity, it will be your and Xiao Yan's birthday in 1 month. I will tell the outside world that your mother gave birth to twin girls and you were lost when you were young. After all, Xiao Yan has been the daughter of the Yun family for so many years and has the reputation of having the wrong daughter. It won't sound good if it gets spread out, so don't say too much outside so as not to lose face to the Yun family. If not saying that Yun Tu and Su Ziyuling were husband and wife, they all thought about whether there would be a gap in the heart of Yun Yan, a daughter who was raised by her own hands, and tried her best to preserve her identity. Yun Su sneered in her heart. She was just a freshman in high school, and she had to study a total of 9 subjects in arts and sciences. She just flipped through the science textbooks, and she roughly knew it. For her who could stand at the top in the interstellar era, these were better than 1 + 1 = 2. Keep it simple. As for Chinese, politics and history, you only need to memorize them. In the interstellar era, everyone's IQ, memory, and imagination have greatly improved, and Yunsu has already reached the level of photographic memory. The next morning, Yunsu went out for morning exercises early. 10 years in prison and slum life made her understand that for some people, wielding force may have more say. Her body was still a little weak. After running around the villa area for 2 times, Yunsu couldn't bear it anymore. She rested for a while, did a set of punches, and breathed in and out for 2 weeks. This was what she had done with a man when she was in prison. I learned it from the big guys, and it has miraculous effects on conditioning the body. In the interstellar era, there is a gene-enhancing fluid. Once you take it, your body will seem to be reshaped. Now I can only exercise honestly. After breakfast, Yuntu went to work, and the 3 school-going children got on the bus and went to school. Lanchinge No. 1 Middle School, Director's Office. Director Li, I firmly disagree with the transfer of the student to our class. As you know, the results of the students in our Hongji class are obvious. She graduated from a middle school in this town. Her results are obvious. If she wants to transfer to our class, it will be very difficult for our class. What an impact. Zhong Xian, the head teacher of Hongji class in the 1st grade of Lanchinge No. 1 Middle School, spat and almost slapped the table with the teacher. Director Li sighed, Teacher Zhong, I understand your mood, but the school also believes in your ability. Although the student graduated from the town, his grades in the school are also among the best, so he can be trained. Can the schools in this town be the same as ours? It's good if she doesn't hold back here. Anyway, I don't agree. If she wants to come to our class, you should change her to a new class teacher. Zhong Xian relied on her success rate in recent years to be confident. Director Li knew that there was no hope of persuasion, so he thought for a while and said, okay, then call me Teacher Yan for me. Zhong Xian breathed a sigh of relief and left happily. Teacher Yan, a transfer student came to the school today and is going to be placed in your class. Does Teacher Yan have any objections? Yan Yu, the head teacher of class 14, grade 1, looked at Yunsu's information and frowned when he saw the school where he graduated from junior high school. Director Li, I have no objection to transferring to our class, but although the entrance exam has been passed, I still want to test it her level. That's no problem, just give her the test papers for the school entrance examination. Director Li breathed a sigh of relief, and someone finally took over. Bang bang bang, there was a knock on the door. Enter. Hello, teacher, I am the new transfer student Yunsu. Cao said that Cao has arrived. Classmate Yunsu, we are just talking about you. You just came to our school. You missed the school's opening exam, but I still want you to take the test paper. Can you do it? This is the head teacher of class 14, Director Li said. Yunsu nodded, okay. Yan Yu looked at it without leaving any trace, and nodded inwardly. At least he didn't look like a troublemaker. Then I'll go to the meeting first. Teacher Yan, thank you for your trouble. Yan Yu nodded and Director Li left the office. This is the paper for the entrance exam. You can do it due to time constraints. You can just do the 3 subjects of Chinese, mathematics, and English. You don't have to write the composition. Yunsu took the paper, glanced at it briefly and started writing. She didn't pause at all, as if she didn't need to think at all. The answer was clear to her mind. Yan Yu looked at the speed with which she wrote. She might not even read the question clearly before scribbling, and suddenly she became embarrassed. She could teach her bad grades, but it would be difficult to correct her bad attitude towards learning. She endured her anger and prepared to wait for her. After finishing it, the attack will occur again. Less than an hour later, Yunsu stopped writing. It took so long mainly because it took some effort to solve the math problem. It was like a doctoral student doing elementary school addition and subtraction and writing down why he got the answer. It was really made her think for a moment. Yan Yu endured his anger and pulled the paper. He was stunned for a moment when he looked at the words on the paper. Let's not talk about the results. The words dragons and phoenixes and iron painted with silver hooks are really good words. Yan Yu felt a little better and took a closer look. Her eyes suddenly widened, she almost took a breath, and quickly opened the standard answers on her phone to check them one by one. Completely correct. The answers to the 3 test papers were almost perfect. I also wrote down several solutions to the math questions, which were more than the reference answers. Yan Yu's hands were shaking a little, and he was laughing in his heart. Zhong Xian was gloating about the misfortune, but he didn't know how much of a treasure he had thrown away with his own hands. She looked at Yunsu in surprise. Classmate Yunsu, welcome to join class 14, grade 1. Thank you, teacher. Yunsu smiled and nodded. Yan Yu originally wanted to tell Director Li about Yunsu's exam situation immediately, but then he thought about it. The papers for the exam at the beginning of the semester are not secrets, and it doesn't necessarily mean that Yunsu has done it, so he should take a look first. End of this chapter. After Rebirth, Boss, she is beautiful and sassy. Author, beautiful. Chapter 4. Chapter 4 4 Solutions. Hey, do you know, it is said that our class is going to have a transfer student, and he is from the country, said Wang Yehua, the most well-informed person in class 14, grade 1, who was chattering after class. How did you know that students from the countryside can transfer to our number 1 middle school? The training should be a little bit like that. A classmate curled his lips. Wang Yehua was anxious. Really, I just heard from someone in Hengji's class that their head teacher, Teacher Zhong, didn't want this student, so he was assigned to our class. What? If their class doesn't want it, they will be assigned to ours. Do they think our class is a garbage dump and accept everything? Yunyan from Hengji class laughed when she heard about the transfer student being rejected by her class teacher. But as she expected, Yunsu was assigned to a regular class. Just wait, Yunchinj number 1 middle school is not a good place to be treated. The place. The students in class 14 had a bad impression of Yunsu, thinking that he was some kind of disgusting bad student. However, when Yunsu stood on the podium and introduced himself gracefully, they fell into collective silence. Damn it, why is there no one there? She said her new classmate is so good looking. Yunsu looked at the classroom and walked to the empty seat in the 3rd row from the bottom. Before she received the textbook, she took out the book she had brought. Lian Yu poked Qin Cheng, who was playing games next to him with his head down. Brother Cheng, have you seen it? The book in the new guy's hand is the original English version of The Wealth of Nations. Good guy, I have never seen someone who is better at pretending than me. Forced people. Qin Cheng glanced at him, a little surprised. Are you the only one who still recognizes The Wealth of Nations, or is it the English version? Lian Yu was silent and did not speak. In fact, he had seen it on his father's bookshelf. His father it's also bought to show off. Yunsu was still immersed in the book. Yao Shuij next to her quickly tugged at the hem of her clothes. Yunsu looked at her doubtfully. Yao Shuij pointed slightly at the top, and Yunsu looked at the blackboard. The next class is mathematics. The mathematics teacher of class 14, grade 1, is known as Ghost Sees Sorrow and has a strict personality, but his teaching level is also one of the best. As soon as he entered the classroom, he found that there was an extra student in the class. He frowned and started to teach. Sure enough, old Lee's eyes were as sharp as a falcon's and he saw Yunsu's little move at a glance. In fact, it was not a small move, because the book was placed on the table. His face turned dark. Well, the new guy is here. The female classmate came up to try this question. Yao Shuij was Yunsu's deskmate. She watched Yunsu sit down and took out a book to read. She glanced at it and turned her head silently. She couldn't recognize two words. Who said that the new classmate came from the countryside? Is it a bad study if you can still read the original English novel? Lao Li looked at the final question of the college entrance examination, which had 4 solutions listed on the blackboard but only 2 answers. He was silent for a moment and waved his hand for Yunsu to go down. Yao Shuij looked at Yunsu with admiration. She had never seen anyone make ghost-seeking sorrow deflate. She must be friends with her. Of course Yunsu didn't know what was going on in everyone's hearts. Looking out the window, it was hot in the summer and the cicadas were chirping constantly, but her heart felt unprecedentedly relaxed and peaceful, and the past seemed to have gone far away. Well, in this case, Yunsu started to write, without even needing time to think. He waved the chalk, flowing smoothly, and finished it in one go. Soon all 4 blackboards were filled with writing. I can't write anymore, teacher. Yunsu looked at him innocently. This student answered very well, but he must also pay attention to classroom discipline now. Everyone copies the solutions on the blackboard into the notebook. This question was the final question in the mathematics college entrance examination the year before. What Lian Yu didn't know was that this book was also picked up by Yunsu from the bookshelf that Yuntu placed in the living room in the morning. It was still brand new, and Yunsu read it with gusto. As soon as he finished speaking, the classroom was silent. He could write 4 solutions to the final question of the college entrance examination. Does this mean that people from the countryside are not good at studying? Everyone looked at the culprit who spread the rumors, Wang Yahua. Yunsu, who didn't get the textbook, listened for a few minutes and continued to lower her head to read. It was so simple that she yawned. Lao Li twitched the corners of his lips and sneered in his heart, how many kinds of things can you write? Wang Yahua was also wronged. He really heard what others said about the new classmates' poor grades. Yunsu closed her book and walked up to the podium. In her opinion, a simple function problem was asked. Teacher, how many solutions do you want? Stop looking, it's you, come up and do this question. Lao Li's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. Holy shit. Brother Chang, I have never seen anyone as arrogant as you. She dared to read other books openly in Lao Li's class. She was miserable. Lian Yu and Qin Cheng occupied the last row all year round and could clearly see when Dottie saw Yunsu's position. He watched the excitement and took pleasure in his misfortune. After class, Lao Li rushed back to the office in 2 steps and found Yan Yu, the head teacher of class 14. Teacher Yan, who is the transfer student in your class? Who graduated from junior high school? You don't know, she just wrote 4 solutions to the math finale question of the previous year in the math class, 2 more than the reference answer. Lao Li dancing with excitement. Yan Yu was also shocked. He didn't expect Yunsu's talent in mathematics to be so amazing. You said Yunsu, she graduated from an ordinary township school. Township schools can do this. Wouldn't it be great if our school could train them? It's even worse. Lao Li felt sad, but after thinking about it, he became happy again. Fortunately, she is now a student of our number 1 middle school. She must be trained well. She must participate in this year's math competition. Yan Yu couldn't laugh or cry. Teacher Li, please calm down. It's only her first day at school, and it's still early for the math competition. Teacher Yan, you don't understand. This competitive thinking needs to be trained early, but, we can really take another look and wait until her first monthly exam results come out to see if she had a sudden flash of inspiration after finishing speaking. Lao Li left in a hurry. Yunsu didn't expect that he had been clearly arranged. After the morning class, Yunsu went to the cafeteria to eat during lunch break. Lanchinj No. 1 Middle School not only had good teaching quality, but also had first-class facilities and equipment. Even the chefs of various cuisines in the cafeteria. We have invited several students, but there is no way that if the students from No. 1 Middle School are not good at studies or have good family backgrounds, none of them will suffer. Yunsu ordered a sweet and sour short ribs and a stir-fried side dish. She was recovering from illness and had no appetite. As soon as she found a seat to sit down, a figure also sat down next to her. Yunsu saw that it was her table mate. Gave way to the side. Hello Yunsu, I'm Yao Shuij. I didn't get to know each other this morning, so we will be at the same table from now on. Yao Shuij has a round face and a bright smile. He seems to have an easygoing temperament. Hello, thank you for helping me this morning. Yunsu was talking about what Yao Shuij reminded her in math class. Yao Shuij waved his hand nonchalantly. What's this? But what was the book you read this morning? You're so good, you can understand the original English books. Yunsu smiled and was about to speak. Where is the original English book? Who can't show off with a book? Answering a math question correctly is nothing. Maybe it's a blind cat that bumped into a dead mouse. A girl with a pretty face passed by and couldn't help but laugh when she heard Yao Shuij's words. Voice. Lu Yi, why do you say that to others? How do you know that others can't understand? If Yunsu's 4 solutions to the questions are considered a blind cat meeting a dead mouse, who are you, a dead cat that a dead mouse cannot touch? When Yao Shuij heard this, he immediately choked back without showing any signs of weakness. The girl named Lu Yi had a look of innocence on her face. I don't believe that she, who comes from the countryside, can understand the original English novel. I heard that people only learn English in junior high schools in the countryside. Maybe her accent has a dialect flavor. Yunsu put down her chopsticks. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker, that we expect dinner, but from their respect to their own self-interest. We dress ourselves, not to their humanity but to their self-love, and never talk to the for own necessities but of their advantages. We don't say words that arouse their altruism, but we say words that arouse their self-interest. We don't say words that are beneficial to them. The voice was clear and beautiful, and the accent was pure and fluent, which shocked everyone present. The students of Lanchinj No. 1 Middle School all came from rich families. Many of them hired professional teachers to teach English, but even so, they did not dare to. Yunsu's accent is as pure as a native speaker's. Lu Yi's grades were not bad, and she was ranked in the top 50 in her class. She could naturally understand the general meaning of what Yunsu said. The words about self-interest and altruism were clearly mocking her, and her face instantly darkened. What's so great about being able to speak a few words in English? If you have the ability to participate in an English competition, I'll wait for you there. Don't dare to come, Okay, I'll participate. Yunsu thought for a while, then nodded and agreed. Then I'll wait for you. Lu Yi smiled contemptuously, took the plate and left. What English competition? Yunsu turned around and asked Yao Shuij. Hearing this, Yao Shuij almost spat out his rice. He looked at her in disbelief. No, Susu, you dare to agree to it without even knowing what the competition is? Is it important? I haven't participated in any competitions. Yunsu shrugged indifferently. Yao Shuij looked at her speechlessly. It's the national English competition for middle school students. First there is the city competition, then the provincial competition, and finally the national competition. It is different from other competitions, such as mathematics competitions. In mathematics competitions, if you get first in the province, you will be recommended. This English competition, there are no guaranteed places in the competition, but those who win the national competition will receive bonuses. I heard that this year's first prize will be worth 300,000 yuan. 300,000? Yunsu's eyes lit up instantly. She was worried about having no money. Sooner or later, she would leave the Yun family. She would not touch a penny of the Yun family's money, but if she wanted to leave, it would be impossible without capital. Although for her, it is easy to look at the fortunes of the stock market and buy a few checks to make money. But now that she is underage and has no funds, she can only think of other ways. Before Yunsu could speak, Yao Shuij was already worried for her. Although your English is very good, you don't have any competition experience, and this competition also has a public speaking part. Can you really do it? Otherwise, just forget it. Yes, it was Lu Yi who was causing trouble, so you don't need to pay attention to her. The words were full of genuine concern. Yunsu smiled and touched her head. Don't worry, I won't do anything I'm not sure about. With a gentle tone, Yao Shuij blushed instantly. Help. Why does she think Yunsu is a bit handsome? Woohoo, it must be an illusion. End of this chapter. After Rebirth, boss, she is beautiful and sassy. Author, beautiful. Chapter 5. Chapter 5 Hacker White Knight. Second miss, has the eldest lady not come out yet? There was a black Bentley parked outside the school. Yunting is already a senior high school student. He has self-study in the evening and gets out of school late. The driver is here to pick up Yunsu and Yunyan. Yunyan has been waiting at the school gate for half an hour, but there is still no sign of Yunsu. Yunsu doesn't have a mobile phone, so she can't contact him, and she can't help but feel a little angry. My sister has her first day at school today. She may have made some new friends to play with. Uncle Lin, let's go first. Maybe my sister has gone home. Yunyan thought about it. Yunsu's first day. If you mess up in school, it will only make your parents who value rules even more unhappy. Okay, Miss. Second. The car drove away. In the alley of Zijin Street, Yunsu finally found a black internet cafe. Being underage is really troublesome. She looked at the sign and walked in. Boss, turn on the machine and whitelist, Yunsu said to the network administrator. The boy in the peaked cap was not surprised and swiped a card to her without raising his head. There were many underage high school students playing games in the internet cafe, fighting fiercely and filled with smoke. Yunsu frowned, found a seat in a corner, sat down, and turned on the computer. She randomly searched for Yuntu's name in her browser, and the past profile of the Yun group quickly popped up. The Yun family is now only 3 generations rich. They made their fortune in the clothing industry. In recent years, they have followed the general trend and want to go into new energy. Transformation, recently looking for cooperation with the Yu family, a long-established wealthy family in Yunchinj. You decide, I can do it, I have money. The boy was overjoyed. The boy grabbed her by the hem of her clothes and said, wait a minute, as long as you teach me, you can come online and I can pay your tuition. Okay, sign up immediately. If you don't participate, you are not a Chinese. Turning her eyes fell on a message, National Science and Technology Creation Competition. Just as she was about to move away, she suddenly saw a line of text, the first prize of the competition is a bonus of 1 million yuan, sponsored by Junya Group, and the work is produced. The patent fees are additional. No time. Yunsu turned around and wanted to leave. With nothing else to do, Yunsu turned off the computer and went to the front desk to get off the plane. Pass. After typing the last code, the entry permission interface appeared. Yunsu was not interested in taking a closer look and spoke in a calm tone. Can you get off the plane now? Well, it seemed that he was stupid and had too much money. In the end, Yunsu agreed that he would come to the internet cafe twice a week. Of course, the time was based on her. Yunsu paused, How much? I said, this place is wrong, it should be. After a pause, Yunsu took his computer directly to operate it. His dexterous fingers were like flying butterflies, and he could almost see the after image. The boy clicked one by one. Dot's eyes widened. Yunsu rubbed his chin and casually browsed some information about the Yun group. Type a URL and search for it. The boy in the peaked cap still lowered his head, as if he didn't hear her words. His hands were flying on the computer, and he muttered, "What is the problem? Why can't it work? Boss, get off the plane. The value of this competition is quite high. Many professionals will participate. The best part is that there is no age or education limit." Yunsu looked at it and saw that there was still 1 month left for the submission of works. There was still time, so he quickly signed up and submitted the information. Pending. The boy was dumbfounded. He couldn't believe that something he had solved in 3 days could be cracked so easily. He swallowed his saliva and said, "Oh my God, that's not right, master. I call you master, how did you do it? Teach me. Teach me." He didn't think it was shameful to call a little girl master at all. Yunsu repeated it again, but there was still no response. Yunsu turned his head helplessly to look at his computer. The boy had long fingers and saw only a string of codes being generated, but red forbidden symbols appeared again and again. "This place is wrong." The white finger pointed to a certain place on the screen. Huiguo Science and Technology Network. It published the research results and paper analyses of many well-known scientists. Of course, they were all open to the public. Yunsu looked more serious. After reading the latest information, Yunsu couldn't help but sigh in his heart. There was a comparison. There is a gap. The technological level of this era is nothing compared to that of the interstellar. The boy finally turned his head. He was young, in his early 20s, and had a delicate appearance. He looked at Yunsu and asked, "What did you say?" "Master, how can I contact you?" "No, I don't have a mobile phone yet, please wait until I come to the internet cafe to find you." "Master, what's your name?" "Just call me Bayet." "Yunsu." After saying that, he left. Seeing Yunsu's figure disappear into the alley, Bayet excitedly took out his mobile phone. "Brother Chi. Can you believe it? Emmett's mission has been solved." It's not me, I'm with you." Said, "I met a super awesome master, really. In less than 2 minutes, she got in." "Damn it, don't talk about you, I feel like I'm dreaming now. I've already kept him, as long as if you can win her over, those grandsons from YN are nothing." Lan Chi on the other side frowned. When did a hacker of this level appear in Lanchinge? "Are you sure you didn't trick me?" Bayet spat excitedly, "It's absolutely true. The Great said she will come to me in 2 days. Although Bayet is usually idle, he is still quite reliable in serious matters. "Okay, wait, I'll come to Lanchinge tomorrow." Lan Chi decided to come and see for himself. After Yunsu over there left, the more he thought about it, the more familiar the name Bayet became. After thinking for a while, he suddenly remembered a piece of news he saw when he was in prison in his previous life. A Chinese hacker was arrested in Country M, and a Fortune 500 family the company sued him, saying that he was suspected of leaking their confidential documents, causing them huge losses, and was eventually sentenced to jail. The hacker was Bayet. That was all several years later. Obviously, Bayet doesn't have that ability at the moment. He just doesn't know why he is staying in an internet cafe in Yunchinge. Yunsu doesn't like to worry about other people's affairs, but since he promised to teach him, he will definitely do it, and everything else it has nothing to do with her. In the interstellar age, humans have already invented the intelligent brain, and all command operations have become simple and easy. As a scientist who has reached the top, Yunsu's computer technology is enough to be king in this era. As long as she thinks about it, The online world is like a blank sheet of paper in front of her, and there is no escape from any corner. Who dares to believe that such a harmless-looking girl can easily make waves in the online world, but she never underestimates the power of the state machine and reveals her specialness before she has enough strength to protect herself. It's looking for death. Yoon family. It was after 9 o'clock in the evening, and Yoon-soo had not returned yet. He is really a wild child. He is used to being loose in the countryside. He wandered outside on the first day of school and refused to go home. I want to change this temper. Soo-yuling sat on the sofa with an angry look on her face. Mom, don't be angry, maybe my sister is going to a classmate's house to play. Yoon-yan held Soo's mother's hand, seeming to comfort her, but she was secretly happy in her heart. Yoon-jing frowned, feeling a little worried. Yoon-soo had just come here after all. Would he not be able to find his way home? It's not safe for a girl to be outside at this late hour. Thinking of this, he stood up and said, Mom, I'll go out and look for you. You guys are waiting at home. He turned around to go out, but he didn't see Yoon-yan's face darken instantly. No need, I'm back. As soon as he arrived at the door, he ran into Yoon-soo, who had just walked in. You still know what time it is when you come back? Soo-yuling looked at her angrily, while Yoon-yan looked beside her as if she was watching a good show. I went to the bookstore after school to look up information. What happened? Yoon-soo looked confused. Looking up information? What information did you check on your first day of school? Tell me, where did you go to play? How can the students taught in township schools get better grades, and can they love learning so much? Soo-yuling was sure she was lying. Yoon-soo looked directly into her eyes and said, It's my first day at school. There are a lot of things I need to know, and I don't have a computer or a mobile phone. Yoon-jing looked at her mother in disbelief. Didn't Yoon-soo prepare all this? Soo-yuling was also stunned. She had never thought of preparing these things for Yoon-soo. Even the clothes in the wardrobe were taken from Yoon-yan. Although they were all new, they were not what parents should have in mind. Thinking of this, she felt a little guilty. Mom is not blaming you, it's just that you have just arrived in Lanchange and are not familiar with the place. It is not safe for you as a girl to be outside. Your mobile phone is not considered well by your mother. She will have someone send it over tomorrow. You are the best now. The most important thing is to work hard and adapt as soon as possible, whether it is studying or other aspects. Our Yoon family is also a well-known figure in Lanchange. Your father is going to introduce you to everyone next month. You must not embarrass our family. Soo-yuling softened her tone. Yoon-yan gritted her teeth after hearing this, and then gently opened it. Yoon-soo just wanted to sneer after hearing this. She avoided the seriousness of her own problems and only cared about the Yoon family's face. She never thought about how frightened and uneasy a daughter who had just returned home would feel. Okay, Mom, I understand. Yoon-soo didn't want to argue with her. Soo-yuling waved her hand and said, Go and have a rest early. If you want to eat, let Wang-ma do it. After that, she went upstairs. Yoon-soo was about to go back to the room when Yoon-jing pulled her with a hint of hesitation on her face. We are brothers and sisters. If you have any problems at school or elsewhere, it's okay, come to me. Okay, brother. Yoon-soo returned to the room with a calm expression on his face. Zeolu Yoon-yan looked at her back, a trace of resentment flashed in his eyes. Does even his brother want to help her now? Just because they are siblings. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After Rebirth, Boss, she is beautiful and sassy. Author, beautiful. Chapter 6. Chapter 6, Do one good deed a day. Early the next morning, Yoon-soo said, I'm going to run to school, and went out. The climate in Lanchange is very good. It is like spring all year round. The air beside the Yulon River is fresh. Yunsu runs around the river adjusting his breathing at a steady speed. Hey, you old lady, you really rely on me, don't you? Look at you and you are still dressed decently. Let me tell you, there are no good consequences for those who get into trouble these days. Everyone is watching, but I didn't get hurt. Holding her, she suddenly collapsed. At the end of Yulon Bridge, a group of hot people gathered around and it was very lively. A middle-aged man was arguing loudly for himself. He was really wronged. He rode his motorcycle to work early. Suddenly an old lady came out of the bridge. He braked suddenly. Before she even touched anyone, the old lady fell down clutching her heart. The old lady had silver hair, was well dressed and well maintained, but her face was pale. She was lying on the ground, her body curled up unnaturally, breathing heavily, and her hands were trying hard to find the small bag she carried with her. Yunsu saw at a glance that the old lady was ill, and immediately stepped forward. The middle-aged uncle wanted to hold her back. Little girl, don't go. Penkai's acting skills are good now, so be careful she takes you too. The man also had good intentions. Yunsu looked at him and said, it's okay. She squatted down, took out a small medicine bottle from the old lady's bag, and quickly glanced at the instructions on the bottle, nitroglycerin tablets. The old lady probably had coronary heart disease or something like that, and now she had angina pectoris. He quickly poured out one pill, opened the old man's mouth, and put the pill under her tongue. Yunsu was almost late when she arrived at school after leaving the hospital. After 2 classes, she went to the office to find her English teacher between classes and proposed that she want to sign up for an English competition. Seeing this, the man didn't waste any more time and dialed the phone. Yunsu sighed, doing a good deed that day, and followed her into the ambulance. The middle-aged man pointed at Yunsu hurriedly. The people around him also talked in a variety of ways. The ambulance arrived quickly and gently carried the old lady into the ambulance. The leading doctor asked, which of you made the call? Do you have any family members? If there are no family members, the people who called the doctor should go together. Arriving at the nearest city hospital, the old lady was hurriedly pushed into the operating room. Yunsu had no choice but to sit outside and wait. Fortunately, the doctor came out soon. The old lady was in good condition and she could be transferred to the ward for observation for another day or 2. The nurse handed the bill to Yunsu. That's right, human life is at stake, and it would be bad if something really happened. You fight, it's okay, we will all bear witness for you. He turned to the man and shouted, call an ambulance immediately. She is sick and cannot delay. The man was stunned and quickly took out his cell phone. He was afraid that something might happen and pressed 120. He looked at Yunsu hesitantly. After paying the fee, Yunsu borrowed paper and pen from the nurse, wrote 2 sentences, and asked the nurse to hand the note to the old lady when she woke up. I don't have a mobile phone, please dial quickly and I'll take care of anything. Yunsu saw his concerns and shouted impatiently. Yunsu looked at the amount on the bill and sighed again. A good person will do it to the end, and went to pay the bill resignedly. Before coming to Yun's house, Yun Daejin gave her a sum of money. Although it was not much, it was already enough for their family. It's a big sum, and more than half of the medical expenses will be gone as soon as I pay it. Xiang Li, an English teacher in class 14, grade 1, wears glasses and has a stern personality. After hearing Yunsu's intention, she frowned and said, classmate Yun, I know you just transferred to our school. You may not know the purpose of this English competition difficulty. As far as I know, you studied in a township school before, and your English teaching level was not satisfactory. What's more, the students participating in this competition are all very high level. I think it is best for you to focus on your studies first, catch up with other students as soon as possible, and don't participate in this competition. Yunsu was non-committal and asked, Teacher, do you need to be selected to participate in this competition? Is there a quota limit? That's not the case, it's just. Okay, teacher, I still want to sign up, Yunsu insisted. Xiangli looked at her steadily, compromising. Okay, since you insist, then be prepared and ask me any questions you have. Yunsu nodded, said thank you to the teacher, and was about to leave. I said to Teacher Xiang, you really asked her to participate. She went to participate, and the instructor is your name. When the time comes, the results of the competition will be disappointing, but no one will say that it is your responsibility, because you did not teach. Okay, the one who spoke was Zhong Xian, the head teacher of Hung Ji's class, who was passing by, with a gloating expression on his face. Xiangli looked at her and said, Teacher Zhong, it is always a good thing if a student wants to participate in the competition, no matter what the result is. Since I am her instructor, I will definitely help her. As long as she works hard, the result is not that important. Hearing this, Zhong Xian said, Teacher Xiang, it's a good thing that you think about your students, but don't blame me for not reminding you. There will be evaluation and grading soon. You bring out this kind of student. Teacher Zhong, what do you mean by this kind of student? Xiangli interrupted her angrily. Teacher Zhong, right? You are not the teacher of our class. My participation in the competition should have nothing to do with you, so I won't bother you. Since I dare to participate, I still have some confidence. Please trust me. Teacher Xiang. Yunsu didn't want to argue, but seeing Teacher Xiang defending her like this, her eyes couldn't help but feel a little cold. Yunsu classmate, it is a good thing to have confidence, but don't be blindly confident. It seems that it is really a good thing that you are not admitted to our Hung Ji class. Only then did Yunsu realize that there was another problem. She smiled slightly and said, really? I think it's a good thing too. As the head teacher of Hung Ji class, Zhong Xian has been gaining authority for a long time. This is the first time that a student dared to yell at her. She smiled instead of getting angry. Then I'll wait and see how far you can go. After saying this, she walked away with a puff of sleeves. Go. Yunsu pretended not to see Teacher Xiangli's worried eyes and left the office as if nothing had happened. When Yao Shuij heard that Yunsu had really signed up for the English competition, he could only give her a thumbs up. The eyes of other people in the class ranged from surprise, disdain, and ridicule. Yunsu ignored it at all. The old lady in the hospital at the other end woke up leisurely, rang the bell to call the nurse, and asked who sent her to the hospital. The nurse told her that she was a little girl, who was only in high school. Then he handed her the note Yunsu gave her, and the old lady took it. There were only 2 sentences on it. On the medical expense card, 62175265, a series of neat numbers, and the words were well written, with flying dragons and dancing phoenixes, iron paintings, and silver hooks. The old lady secretly praised. The old lady looked at the string of card numbers, but she breathed a sigh of relief. She was most afraid of owing someone something. This child has a kind heart, but he is not the kind of person who doesn't ask for anything in return. One number is the same, and the calculation is clear, which is interesting. Actually, if it was Yunsu's own money, she wouldn't write a note specifically, but it was Yun's father's money, and she couldn't use her father's hard-earned money to do her own good deeds. The old lady thought for a while, then took out her mobile phone and called her son. Hey, Mom, what's wrong? A steady male voice sounded. I'm at the city hospital now, come here quickly. The man's voice suddenly changed. Mom, what's wrong with you? Are you sick? I'll be right over. The man rushed to the hospital quickly. If Yunsu was here, he might have recognized him. The man's appearance was very familiar, the kind he often saw on local channels. He was none other than Lianzila, a senior official in the city. Lianzila looked nervous and asked about his mother's condition. The old lady was full of anger and said lightly, "It's okay, I was just frightened and a little uncomfortable. Thanks to a little girl who sent me to the hospital." This is what she left. "You can pay me the medical expenses and thank you gifts as you watch past." Lianzilla hurriedly said hello, feeling very grateful to Yunsu. End of this chapter. After Rebirth, Boss, she is beautiful and sassy. Author, beautiful. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. The fifth master of the Qin family. In the secret and deep alley, a few figures flashed past, but they were not very clear. "Are you Qin Cheng? Someone asked me to come and have a chat with you," a breathy voice sounded. Qin Cheng stood leaning against the wall with his hands folded, looking at the people gathered in a circle. A trace of ridicule flashed at the corner of his mouth. "Is there someone? Who is it? What do you want to talk about in this way?" Qin Cheng and Lian Yu were blocked in the alley just after school. "Don't you know who you have offended? Let me tell you, if you are more honest today, maybe I can consider letting you go out with your beard and tail intact." The leading man was tall and burly, with vicious eyes. Lian Yu silently raised his hand beside him. Can you really not see me? Am I not worthy of being harshly spoken to? Who do you think you are? You're just a follower, and you have the right to speak." The man looked at him with disdain, and the other people were eager to try with the sticks in their hands. Lian Yu's eyes instantly became extremely dark, and he rolled his neck. "Brother Cheng, don't talk nonsense to them. Do it." As soon as he finished speaking, he punched the person next to him in the lower abdomen. The sound of the fist hitting the muscles was dull and thick, which showed the power of this punch. Qin Cheng also moved. His speed was extremely fast. He turned sideways to avoid the stick in the leader's hand. Unexpectedly, he failed. "How dare you!" Lian Yu shouted loudly. "Third young master, you don't have to lie to me. Since I dare to do it, you have to suffer today." The man looked at him, and the person next to him straightened Qin Cheng's legs, took out a hammer, and put it on his knees. Lian Yu also put away his usual playful smile. "Brother Cheng, this is a bit too much." The two of them looked at each other. Something was wrong. While his mind was in turmoil, Qin Cheng didn't pay attention, and a stick was raised behind him. A loud sound was heard in the air, bang, and he hit his back hard. Qin Cheng staggered and almost fell to the ground. In an instant, a huge brawl began, and the sound of fists hitting the flesh was heard one after another, making one's teeth hurt. "Who sent you here?" Qin Cheng was in pain, but there was no wave on his face at all. Even though he was under the control of others, he looked down on everyone as if he were from above. "How dare you do this after knowing my identity? Let me guess, those good-for-nothing families definitely don't have the guts, no. Is there a mole in my Qin family? They are so confident, it seems I can guess that's right." Qin Cheng also smiled. He had already come to Lanchinge, but he didn't expect that those guys still refused to change. "I said before, I was entrusted to teach you a lesson." The man chuckled and knelt down. "It's interesting." It seemed that he was not a good person. Qin Cheng became interested and attacked the man with his fists like lightning. The man was not willing to show weakness and bullied himself to meet him. Several people quickly surrounded them and restrained them, restraining their hands and preventing them from moving. "Little girl, I advise you to find another way. This is not the place you should come to." When the man saw that it was a girl, he didn't take it seriously. "I'm sorry, I just want to take this road today, please give me a step." The girl took 2 more steps forward. She had a delicate face and picturesque eyebrows. She was wearing ordinary sportswear and looked a little weak. When their eyes met, Qin Cheng's pupils shrank. He could clearly see that there were calluses on the man's mouth and on the belly of his index and middle fingers. This is obviously the result of Su, who has been holding guns all year round. These people are by no means ordinary gangsters. Brother Cheng, when Lian Yu saw this, his expression changed drastically. When someone caught the opportunity, he kicked him to the ground. Ta-ta, tap-ta. At some point, a girl stood not far away. Against the light, no one could see her face clearly. Qin Cheng and Lian Yu became more and more solemn in their hearts. They grew up in the army and were very skilled. Most people couldn't get close to them. The skills of these people should not be what small gangsters should have. And the moves were cruel, as if they were going to kill them. Hee, the man chuckled and raised his hand. At the same time, Qin Cheng saw the opportunity and was about to make a move. We've been squatting on you for so long, third young master, I think it's not too much to give you one leg today. The man showed a cruel smile. Third young master, what are you thinking about? No one in Land City can come to save you, the man was confident. Three young masters. There are only a few people in Lanchange who know his family background and identity, so he seems to be from the capital. It seemed like he couldn't get any better today, his mind was spinning rapidly. The person who came was none other than Yunsu. Her hearing had been better than ordinary people since she was a child. When she heard the fight, she didn't want to take care of it, but she accidentally caught the word Qin family, and a handsome face flashed in her mind. She stopped and walked in. It's you, classmate Qin, and classmate Tong, isn't it a coincidence? Yunsu didn't expect it to be his classmates, Qin Cheng and Lian Yu, but he didn't expect Qin Cheng to be from the Qin family in the capital. Qin Cheng and Lian Yu were surprised. Isn't this a new transfer student? Qin Cheng's heart froze slightly. If it was him and Lian Yu, they might be able to escape unscathed, but with the addition of Yunsu, he was not sure. Yunsu managed to reveal the information that the three of them knew each other. Sure enough. When the man heard that the three of them were classmates, his impatient expression changed. It seemed that he couldn't let this girl go. The man winked, and the two men quietly came behind Yunsu, raising their thick-wrist wooden sticks. Be careful, Qin Cheng and Lian Yu said in unison. As if there were eyes on his back, Yunsu suddenly turned around, dodged the wooden stick with his hands, struck hard with his elbow sideways, then kicked someone over, then circled around with his other hand and hit someone on the back of the neck. But in an instant, the two of them had fallen to the ground. Silence. Even Yu's jaw almost dropped to the floor. Who said she came from the countryside? Those who come from the countryside can watch the original version of The Wealth of Nations. A person from the countryside can have such skills. Did she learn to hunt in the countryside? The man was also shocked. He did not expect that a little girl could have such skills. He waved his hand and everyone rushed forward. Qin Cheng and Lian Yu also took the opportunity to break free. Everyone was in a melee in an instant. Yunsu's movement skills were weird and he was swimming among the crowd. Every time he shot, he hit the critical point quickly and accurately. She understands all the meridians and acupuncture points of the human body, and targets the most vulnerable places. Each move may seem light, but it has the power of thunder. The three of them joined forces and quickly ended the battle. There was a groan. Qin Cheng squatted down and said to the leader, I don't care who sent you, go back and tell him that this matter is not over. After speaking, he picked up the hammer on the ground, raised it, and dropped it, smashing the man's knee. Ah! The man screamed, a trace of hatred flashed in his eyes, and he touched his lower back calmly. Are you looking for this? Yunsu looked at her with a smile, and a silenced gun magically appeared in his delicate white hand. The gun's body was black and filled with coldness. The man's heart was even colder. He shuddered. He didn't even know when the gun was taken away. What a monster this girl is. Yunsu unhurriedly put the safety on the gun, raised it and put it against the man's eyebrows. The man's body trembled involuntarily. He was finally afraid. The girl in front of him was clearly smiling, but he felt the murderous aura that turned into reality enveloped him. His face turned pale and he almost suffocated. Glock 17 9mm pistol, it's not bad, it's used in the army. Yunsusu moved his hand slightly, but before anyone could see clearly, the gun had disintegrated into a pile of parts. The man's eyes widened. He couldn't practice this technique without handling guns for decades, but this girl is so young, and her hands are white and clean, without any calluses. It's so scary. This is definitely a monster. Qin Cheng's face is unpredictable. Does the army use guns? Who is it? Second uncle or third uncle? He looked at Yunsu, his eyes looking at him. It was so strange. A girl who was said to have transferred from the countryside not only had extraordinary skills, but also knew so much about guns. This was definitely not something that ordinary people could train. But now it was saved by someone else. Without him, he wouldn't ask any more questions. Yunsu, who grew up in the countryside, did not know these things, but Yunsu in the interstellar era had been on the battlefield, and playing with a gun was as flexible for her as her arms and fingers. Qin Cheng stopped talking nonsense and simply knocked everyone unconscious. I am Qin Cheng. If you need anything from now on, just ask. No need, it's not because of you, Yunsu said casually, and then walked straight out of the alley. Qin Cheng and Lian Yu stared at each other. What do you mean, brother Cheng, is she doing it for me? Lian Yu returned to his jokey appearance. I started dreaming before I fell asleep. Qin Cheng slapped him on the head. It's just the two of us, Lian Yu said aggrievedly. Qin Cheng, isn't it okay if the roads are not parallel to each other? Lian Yu wanted to say something else. The phone rang, and Qin Cheng answered the call. Uncle Qin Cheng straightened his face and spoke respectfully. Look back, a low and melodious male voice sounded. Brother-in-law, have you come to Lanchinge? Qin Cheng turned back happily. A pair of black cars parked silently at the entrance of the alley. The rear window slowly rolled down, and an unparalleledly handsome face appeared, with sculpted features, sharp edges, deep eyes, and exuding nobility. Breath. Brother-in-law. Brother-in-law. Lian Yu also followed Qin Cheng in calling people. The Qin and Lian families were from aristocratic families and were very familiar with each other. The man Qin Cheng calls his uncle nodded lightly. He is the current actual leader of the Qin family in the capital, Qin Xiao. He has an unruly temperament, but he is extremely respectful to Qin Xiao, his uncle. No one knows how unfathomable this man is, but no one dares to provoke him easily. It's not just Qin Cheng. There are many wealthy families in the huge capital. When they see Qin Xiao, they all respectfully call him Fifth Master. Qin Xiao glanced at the two of them, their clothes were disheveled, and said, Did something happen? Qin Cheng, just now, a group of people blocked me and Lian Yu and tried to break my legs. I suspect they are from the capital. It's my second uncle and the others. A chill flashed through Qin Xiao's eyes when he heard this. I really have too much time to live. Qinju, tell me to go down and find something for the second master and the others to do. The land in the western suburbs has been cut off for him. His tone was lazy, but it made him feel uncomfortable. It's creepy. Yes, Fifth Master. Qinju, the driver, responded. Are you not injured? Qin Xiao asked casually. He was still aware of Qin Cheng's skills. Qin Cheng was a little ashamed. No, a classmate just passed by and helped us. Classmate? Qin Xiao became more interested. Don't tell me she's a girl in white clothes. Qin Xiao recalled a girl who just came out of the alley. He glanced at it unintentionally. She was not tall and just looked at to a profile with graceful lines. It should be her. Qin Cheng pursed his lips. Qin Xiao. Okay, Qin Cheng, I've only been in Lanchinge for a short time, and you've forgotten everything you learned, right? Come back to the base with me for training in 2 days, including you. I know, Uncle. Qin Cheng nodded in agreement. He didn't want to be inferior to a girl. No, Uncle, you don't know how perverted that classmate of ours is. It's not like we can't do it, Lian Yu was about to cry but had no tears, so why did he drag him along? End of this chapter. After Rebirth, boss, she is beautiful and sassy. Author, beautiful. Chapter 8. Chapter 8 Rumors spread. What is this? Yunsu asked his deskmate Yao Shuij early in the morning, frowning at the contents of his table. A bunch of colorful snacks of various kinds. It's food, can't you see? Yao Shuij winked at her and pointed behind her. Here it is, Sister Yun. Lian Yu looked very excited as he asked for credit. Qin Cheng also looked at her and nodded slightly. Take it back yourself, I don't need it. Lian Yu walked over and said, what's wrong, Sister Yun? It doesn't suit your taste, so I'll change it next time anyway. Brother Cheng always has something different on the table every morning. Yunsu was a little speechless. You won't need it in the future, do you understand? Okay, Sister Yun, if you need anything in the future, you can come to me. I am obligated, and Brother Cheng. Lian Yu looked serious, and even brought Qin Cheng with him. Looking back afterward, he was really a little scared last night. If it weren't for Yunsu, they may not be able to escape unscathed, so naturally they are full of gratitude to Yunsu. Etc. Wrong. Isn't Qin Cheng the school bully? Who dares to blackmail him? Well, Lian Yu left angrily. Yun Yan hesitated for a moment, looking like he was hesitating to speak. Actually, Yunsu smiled softly, it's nothing. It's just that I saw someone blackmailing them last night and collecting protection money from them. I saw injustice on the road, so. Oh, actually Yunsu, oh, that's that girl, she's my sister. Yun Yan whispered, as if she was afraid that others would hear her. You know that transfer student from class 14? She's the one our class teacher didn't ask for. Qin Cheng and Lian Yu gave her food this morning. I heard that Su Qingqing from the arts and sports class was so angry that her face turned crooked. Students in Hongji class secretly gossiped during class. I called the police for them. Yunsu looked calm and continued reading. I just rushed forward. Yao Shuij interrupted her excitedly. Is that so? Yao Shuij was a little confused. Yun Yan in the front row heard the discussion, stopped writing and turned around suddenly. Are you talking about the newly transferred girl from class 14? Qin Cheng likes her. There was an imperceptible jealousy in his tone. It is no secret that Su Qingqing from the arts and sports class likes Qin Cheng in school. Actually what? Xiao Yan, you don't know anything, do you? The girl's eyes lit up instantly. The girl said in surprise, Xiao Yan, don't you only have 2 children in your family? Senior Yunting, who is in the 3rd year of high school, is your brother. I know where this Yunsu came from. I have never heard of you talking about it before, and not all did she come from the countryside? No way, didn't you say that the girl came from the countryside and wants to become a phoenix? The girl next to her curled her lips. Susu, when did you and Lian Yu become so familiar? He even called you sister and gave you food. The most important thing is that Qin Cheng didn't object. Yao Shuij asked Yunsu in disbelief. Although few people know about Qin Cheng's family background, Lian Yu's family is the top wealthy family in Lanqing and is well known in both political and business circles. The relationship between Lian Yu and Qin Cheng is extraordinary. Even headed by Qin Cheng, number 1 middle school, the students can see clearly and naturally understand that Qin Cheng's family is extraordinary. How could Qin Cheng like her? I don't know how a student like her got into our school. The girl immediately denied it. I've already said it, no need to thank you, no need to mention it again. Yunsu opened the book and ignored Lian Yu. Yun Yan had a troubled expression on her face. Actually, she is a child that my mother brought back just 2 days ago, so she was transferred from the countryside to our school. It turns out she was adopted, and she's so arrogant even though she's living under someone else's roof. The girl suddenly realized and was very sure. Yunyan did not answer. Yunsu had indeed just been picked up. This was true. Others speculated that Yunsu was adopted. It had nothing to do with her. Did you know? She also talked nonsense in front of our class teacher, saying that she was very confident to participate in the English competition. By the way, Xiao Yan, don't you also want to participate in the English competition? Now there is something exciting to watch. Her own daughter is so good, it's really I don't know what your parents think about adopting one, the girl said happily, with a hint of flattery in her words. It is true that in everyone's eyes, Yunyan has a good family background, good grades, good looks, and a gentle and kind personality. In the eyes of many people, she is a goddess. After hearing what the girl said, Yunyan smiled peacefully and beautifully, but she almost laughed out loud in her heart. Yunsu participated in the English competition? What a big joke. Did she think she could be better than herself? Rumors spread like the wind, and they quickly spread. Su Qingqing from the art and sports class learned the news, and her mood suddenly improved after being upset for a whole day. She was just an adopted orphan, why should she compete with her? She rolled her eyes, she must be shown something powerful to let her know that not everyone can mess with her. Are you the new one? But just after school, Yunsu was stopped. Led by Su Qingqing, several girls with colorful hair surrounded her. It looked like they were not students of number 1 middle school. Yunsu looked at the sky speechlessly, why is this alley again? You can't make it, right? Yunsu, right? You don't look very good. I heard that Qin Cheng takes good care of you. What, are you familiar with him? Su Qingqing did not speak, but a red-haired girl next to her spoke. Does it have anything to do with you? If you have any questions, please ask Qin Cheng. I'm very busy. After saying that, Yunsu was about to leave. Su Qingqing stopped in front of her and spoke softly, classmate Yun, you may not understand it when you first come here. The gap between people is huge. You and Qin Cheng are not suitable. Please talk to him, keep distance. She stood there slim and graceful, wearing a white dress, with long, gentle hair and a beautiful face. Yunsu also laughed. This kind of pitiful white lotus type, she is one and Yunyan is another, is it very popular? She said a little impatiently, what's your relationship with Qin Cheng? So what if I have anything with him, so what if I don't have anything? Is it your turn to speak? Su Qingqing's face quickly twisted, and the malice in her eyes was undisguised, I'm not qualified, so why are you an adopted orphan? Adoption? Orphan? What? Yunsu asked, who did you hear that I was adopted? What? You don't admit it? It's true that Yunyan from class 1 is your sister, but pheasants are wild no matter what, and they can't be real. Recognize your identity. Su Qingqing looked disdainful. Yunsu gently leaned into her ear, you are right, what is fake can never be true, but, I am dear, but she is wild. Su Qingqing was stunned, how could it be possible? You can say this kind of thing, I really don't know what her parents think about adopting you. Yunsu, I also want to know if she dares to say such things, get out of my way. The tone seemed to be wrapped in ice and snow. Su Qingqing and others were frightened for a moment and involuntarily got out of the way. You don't need to think about Yunsu to know how this kind of words spread. It doesn't matter, she thinks highly of Yunyan. Now she only knows these low-level methods, and she doesn't bother to care about it. When Yunsu arrived home, Yunyan was in the living room and saw her saying hello with a smile. Yunsu passed by her, stopped, and said in a voice that only two people could hear, I was adopted? You dare to spread such ridiculous words to the outside world. Do you think it is me or my parents who are embarrassed? How stupid. After saying that, he went upstairs without waiting for her reaction. Yunyan's body trembled slightly as her fingernails dug into her flesh. It was clear that Yunsu couldn't compare to her in anything, so why did he speak to her in such a condescending tone? Boundless hatred arose in her heart. In this family, one daughter is enough. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After Rebirth, Boss, she is beautiful and sassy. Author, beautiful. Chapter 9. Chapter 9 successfully formed a team. There is less than a month until the day to submit works for the National Science and Technology Creation Competition. Although Yunsu already has some ideas, and although there is no limit on the number of participants in each group, she now has no funds and no connections. She is alone. It is difficult to achieve, so finding reliable teammates is the most important thing now. In fact, Yunsu had heard about this competition in her previous life. She remembered that the works of the grand prize winners at that time had caused a nationwide sensation, but she was too far away from this at that time and had only read some reports. Facing Lao Li's vision of killing someone, she calmly turned on her phone. Lao Li couldn't help it. These days, he asked Yunsu to do it no matter how difficult or tricky the questions were. She could silence him with perfect answers every time. However, Yunsu never saw Yunsu in his class. So listened carefully, which made him really love and hate it, and he was more determined to let Yunsu participate in the mathematics competition. Lian Yu, who was in the last row, looked at Yunsu lowering his head and playing with his mobile phone and said twice, "Brother Chang, I really can't see through Sister Yun more and more. I say her grades are not good, but every time she can." Old Li was convinced, saying that she came from a small place, but her kung fu was unpredictable and she even knew guns well. "I didn't expect that there was such a person in Lancheng." Qin Cheng also had a flash of deep thought in his eyes. Not to mention Lancheng, even in the capital of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon where he grew up, he had never seen a person like Yunsu. However, the only good thing was that he was a friend rather than an enemy. There are different opinions from the outside world, but none of them can affect Yunsu. She entered the famous Science and Technology Forum in China and browsed it. Many posts were about the Science and Technology Creation Competition. It seemed that this competition attracted a lot of attention. There are also many people who have the same idea as Yunsu and come to see their teammates. It is also a good idea to post a post to explain their ideas and then put forward requirements for their teammates. Yunsu thought for a while and opened the page for editing new posts. Type the next line. The top university in China, Huaqing University. Lin Dai, a junior majoring in power machinery and engineering, was sitting in his dormitory, browsing technology forums. Originally, he was already a junior and had a heavy workload, so he didn't have much time to participate in this competition. However, he later wanted to apply for postgraduate study at the school. He wanted to follow the instructors attach great importance to students having specific scientific research practical experience, and this science and technology creation competition is a good opportunity. What are these things? After browsing through a dozen items in a row, they were all cliché or unintelligible. Lin Dai pressed his eyebrows and felt a little headache. The 5G era is coming, what direction should we look forward to in the 6G era? Lin Dai hurriedly went to privately chat with the boss. The boss was an account that was just registered today. It has a default avatar and a nickname with the simple letter Y. These made Lin Dai feel that she was indeed an expert. Where did this boss come from? Lin Dai would never have imagined that the unattainable boss in his eyes was still a freshman in high school. He read it 3 times in disbelief, word for word. Although he only briefly wrote some ideas, and many places could even be said to be fantasy, he had an inexplicable hunch that as long as he followed the direction she said, the above maybe it can really be achieved. Over there, Yunsu's cell phone has not stopped vibrating since she posted that post, and she glances at the private messages from time to time. Lin Dai's eyes stayed on this line. He originally thought it was another headline-grabbing headline, but as he read line by line, his expression gradually became serious and he sat upright. There are still many professionals on the forum who have also seen the power of this post, and they all worship the big guy below. The contestants of the technology creation competition are even frantically swiping the screen and asking the big guy to take him away. He carefully considered his words and sent a message carefully. "Hello, boss, I am a student majoring in power machinery and engineering at Hwaking. I am very interested in the idea you sent about drones. I also participated in the science and technology creation competition. I don't know if I would be honored to talk to you in detail on the development and application of drone technology. New thermal insulation and conductive materials have been discovered, take a look. Exploration and discovery of space routes in the new era. Surprise, new energy vehicles can actually operate like this. Hwaking University. At the top university in China, Yunsu clicked on the private message with no emotion on her face. She threw 2 questions at random. Every time someone asked for cooperation in private messages, she answered them uniformly. Although she didn't ask how good her teammates were, at least you can't hold back. Lin Dai was stunned when he saw the question that was sent to him. This big guy's style of doing things is really direct. This kind of person is either extremely conceited or extremely powerful. Of course, he is more inclined to the second type. He answered the question seriously with 12% energy. Although he could not be said to be amazing and talented to be admitted to Hwaking, he was by no means an ordinary person. He read the first question 3 times and thought about it for a full 20 minutes before he came up with some ideas. He tried calculations frantically on the manuscript paper, and tried again if he failed to deduce it. Over and over again, more than an hour passed before he finally recovered from his confusion. After recovering from the state of depression, I finally managed to solve the first question. He read the second question over and over again, but finally gave up and couldn't understand it at all. It was completely out of the scope of what he had learned. After thinking for a while, he sent this question to his friend Lan Chi and asked him to help him read it. Look. Lan Chi is a student in the computer science department of Hwaking and a well-known master in the whole school. Lan Chi was busy at the Hwaking Supercomputing Center. He casually glanced at the message sent by Lin Dai and was instantly distracted by it, so he put down what he was doing. Half an hour later, Lin Dai received an unprecedented call from Lan Chi. He had always seen the dragon but never saw its end, and it was Lin Dai who took the initiative to find him. "Where did you get this question?" Lan Chi's voice was a little serious. "What's wrong, have you solved it?" Lan Chi was silent for a moment. "Not yet. The algorithm involved in this question is too complicated. I can only give you a general idea now." Lin Dai couldn't believe it. He had never seen Lan Chi with such an uncertain tone. "The person who asked this question is much better at computer science than me." Lan Chi didn't want to admit it, but it was a fact. "No. The boss is so awesome." He swallowed. "It's not because of the technology creation competition. This is a big shot I saw on the technology forum. She posted some ideas about drones. I wanted to cooperate with her, and she gave me the questions." Lin Dai was extremely excited. "Drone, send it to me." Lan Chi hung up the phone and checked the forum link sent by Lin Dai. He, who has always been called a great by others, couldn't help but marvel, this person is really a genius. He sorted out his thoughts and sent them to Lin Dai, and finally typed a message. "I will participate too." Lin Dai's eyes widened when he saw the news. Yunsu over there was looking through private messages one after another. The answers from everyone were all kinds of. Just then, the news from Lin Dai came in. She looked at it carefully after clicking in, and became a little interested. As expected of a Hwaking student, she had 2 brushes. She knew the difficulty of these 2 questions. Although Lin Dai's answer was not perfect, the idea was generally correct. She sent a message back to Lin Dai, "Look at these, they are some of my detailed ideas. After reading them, you can share your thoughts." She sent Lin Dai a document. Lin Dai took a breath of cold air. The bosses already had detailed plans, so they would just win. "Boss, how about we make an appointment to meet and talk? My friends and I are both in the capital." "How about you?" Lin Dai couldn't wait. "Maybe not recently, I'm in Lanchinj, let's talk about it later." Yunsu rejected him. Lin Dai was not disappointed and said that they would have time to meet at any time. After adding Yunsu's WeChat account, and after the two of them had discussed it, Lin Dai started a group chat among 3 people. Lan Chi, who was still busy in the laboratory, heard Lin Dai say that Yunsu was from Lanchinj, and somehow suddenly thought that the master Baya mentioned last time was also in Lanchinj. He originally wanted to go to Lanchinj last time, but was delayed by other things. "Baya, that boy hasn't squatted with anyone yet. It seems that Lanchinj is really not simple." End of this chapter. After Rebirth, boss, she is beautiful and sassy. Author, beautiful. Chapter 10. Chapter 10 Code Deciphering. In a blink of an eye, the English preliminary test is coming. The preliminary test is conducted at the municipal level, and the test center happens to be Lanchinj No. 1 Middle School. The day before the exam, Yao Shuij was worried. "Susu, how are you preparing?" "It's good, don't worry." Yunsu didn't react for a moment. She was busy with the National Science and Technology Creation Competition recently and almost forgot about it. "That's good, you must work hard. You don't know, Lu Yi tells people everywhere about your participation in the competition, and many people are waiting to see your joke," Yao Shuij said angrily. "By the way, it's my birthday this weekend, you're going to come? It's at my house." Speaking of this, Yao Shuij was filled with longing and excitement. Yunsu nodded and agreed, "Okay, I will definitely come." On the second day, the English competition came as scheduled. In the exam classroom, Yunsu and Lu Yi met on a narrow road. Lu Yi smiled confidently, "I didn't expect you would dare to come to the competition. This is not something you can just pretend to read and speak a few words in English. Just wait and you will see the results after the test." She looked at Yunsu, waiting for her counterattack. "Trouble, please give in." Yunsu walked to his seat without squinting, without even looking at Lu Yi. Yunsu got the test paper, his eyes were like torches, and he quickly scanned every question. The speed of writing did not stop at all. The answer to each question seemed to be already known in his mind. The different answering speed from others attracted the attention of the invigilator. "What's wrong? How can I help?" Yunsu was very friendly for the sake of tuition. The invigilator was from a foreign school. He walked slowly to Yunsu's desk and was slightly shocked when he saw Yunsu writing quickly and the paper was clean without a single comment. He originally thought that the candidate was answering the questions randomly, but when he took a closer look, he found that the answers to every question were correct, all correct. The invigilator subconsciously checked the time. The exam just started and the paper will be handed in within half an hour? Are the students at Lanchinj No. 1 Middle School so scary? The invigilator was extremely envious and glanced at the name column on the test paper, Yunsu. He remembered it. Yunsu had finished the test paper less than half an hour after the exam started. She stopped writing and raised her hand to signal. Yunsu walked out of the examination room after handing in her papers. Lu Yi in the back row looked at her back, in disbelief. She just slipped in like that? Don't even struggle? Lu Yi never thought that Yunsu had to answer all the test papers before handing them in. Baya took Yunsu into the internet cafe and sat down in front of the computer. His computer was assembled by himself and had extremely high configuration. Yunsu was jealous because the computer Suzayuling bought for her could only be used for daily use at best. Seeing Yunsu get off the car at the entrance of the alley, Baya was overjoyed and hurriedly stepped forward to greet him. After leaving the examination room, Yoon-soo drove to the internet cafe on Zijin Street. She promised Baye to go to the internet cafe to find him. Because she didn't have Yoon-soo's contact information, Baye waited in the internet cafe every day, almost looking forward to seeing him. If the last task hadn't been completed, Baye almost thought it was a dream. "Master, do you know YN? Master, you're finally here. You don't know how hard it has been for me to wait for you," Baye complained almost with snot and tears. What does she mean? Ignore her words. Submit the paper. Lu Yi's face is green and white, and her teeth are almost broken. Let's see. The teacher who invigilated the exam came in, and the classroom instantly became quiet. After the test papers were distributed, the exam began. Everyone started writing quickly. Even in the preliminary round, it was very difficult. There were many unfamiliar words, and everyone wrote slower and slower. "I don't know." Yoon-soo was very honest. "Baye Wu Yan, is there anyone who plays computer in China who doesn't know about YN? Although I hate to admit it, YN does have a very high status in the domestic hacker community." He turned on his computer and entered a private hacker forum, which was filled with top-ranked experts in the country. When he scrolled to a post offering a reward, he stopped and said to Yoon-soo, "This post is a post offering a reward from Junyu Group. They were looking for someone to decipher the core code of a program, and I took over the task, but it has been 3 days since today and I still haven't cracked it." Baye felt a little ashamed when he said this. YN is a well-known hacker organization. I had some trouble with them before, but now they say they will solve the program within a day and slap me in the face. So if Baye loses this match, he will lose all face. Show me. Yoon-soo got the program and started operating on the keyboard with her hands. Lines of code poured out from her fingertips. Baye stared straight at it. In just a few minutes, the problem was solved, and the problem that had troubled Baye for 3 days was solved. Okay, actually this is not difficult. The interesting thing is that there are many traps in it. If you are not careful, you can easily get sidetracked and lose your direction. It's a bit interesting." Yoon-soo looked very interested. "Not difficult. Interesting." Baye was about to cry but had no tears. Yoon-soo's simple question made him hold his head for 3 days. He felt like he had lost a lot of hair. Lan Chi, the only reliable person, doesn't know what he's been busy with recently. If Yoon-soo doesn't show up again, he really has nothing to do. Thinking of this, he is secretly glad that he had shamelessly kept Yoon-soo in the first place. He quickly sent the final results to Junyu Group, which was also very efficient, and the money was transferred within a short time. Junyu Group has a lot of money, and the reward amount is 2 million. Baye transferred all the money to Yoon-soo without blinking an eye. He knew in his heart that it was Yoon-soo's credit, and Yoon-soo didn't refuse. When Yoon-soo was in Interstellar, in addition to doing scientific research in the laboratory, he would occasionally go to Imperial College to teach students. Every seat was packed, and he was very good at teaching. Baye is obviously the kind of student that the teacher likes the most. He can understand everything at a glance. After Yoon-soo's guidance, he felt like he was enlightened, and many of the problems that had troubled him before suddenly became clear. After exchanging contact information, Baye almost burst into tears, finally no longer having to wait here every day. After leaving the internet cafe, Yoon-soo saw that it was still early and took a taxi to a nearby shopping mall to buy Yao Shuij a birthday gift. "Hello, please bring me this watch." Yoon-soo nodded at a watch on the counter. The shopping guide looked at Yoon-soo, who was wearing simple clothes. Without any contempt, she opened the showcase with a decent smile and took out the watch Yoon-soo was interested in. The dial is exquisite and elegant, dotted with a circle of diamonds. Although the price is not cheap, it looks very suitable for Yao Shuij. Yoon-soo took out his card and was about to pay. "Little girl, it's you. I've been looking for you for a long time," a surprised voice sounded. Yunsu looked around and saw that it was the old lady she sent to the hospital last time. The old lady was well dressed and accompanied by a man who looked like an assistant. "It's you, Grandma, are you feeling better?" Yunsu greeted with a smile. The old lady smiled even bigger when she heard this, and took a few steps forward to hold Yunsu's hand. "Thanks to you last time, otherwise I might not be able to stand here today. Do you like this watch? Grandma gave it to you. Think of it as a thank you gift last time." The man next to him understood and quickly handed the card to the shopping guide. Yunsu had no time to stop him. "What are you doing? You have already given me a thank you gift." That night Yunsu received a sum of money that far exceeded the medical expenses. "That's different. My son gave it to you last time, and Grandma gave it to you this time. Have you eaten? Why don't you go to Grandma's house? My family has always wanted to thank you in person." As he said this, he pulled Sugo's. Yunsu declined, but couldn't shake off the old lady's kindness, so she had to follow her and get in the car. End of this chapter.